Welcome back for part 2 of What If Vader Saved the Younglings. I got tons of requests for a part 2 after the previous episode, so if you haven't seen part 1, the link will be in the description below. Moving to his shuttle, Sidious allowed the Force to guide him to his apprentice. But as he reached the planet of Coruscant, where he had first anointed his apprentice, the Force presence had disappeared. Sidious slammed the controls in anger and ordered all of his agents to search for his apprentice. How had he learnt of such an ability, and how could he not sense him? Sidious lowers his shuttle to the ground and begins to prowl the surrounding area, thinking that Vader could not have travelled far. Sidious entered what was formerly a Jedi Temple, but was now a symbol for the rule of the Empire. Moving through the variety of rooms and levels, Sidious found his way to the Holocron Vault, where he knew the Jedi had left some of their artifacts. But to his annoyance, the vault was empty. It seemed that the betrayal by his apprentice was better planned than he had anticipated. Sidious would need to move quickly. Thinking about the locations of some of his other holocrons, Sidious reorganized his troops to scour dark-side planets, for he knew he had looted most of the others of their artifacts. Sidious eventually arrives on the planet of Malachor, having not received further information from his agents. All appeared to be normal on this deserted planet, but Sidious could sense otherwise. Making imposing strides towards the Sith Temple, Sidious jumped into the chasm, where the remnants of the Great Scourge of Malachor could be found. Looking ahead to the normally dormant temple, Sidious is suddenly blinded by the brightest of lights as the temple begins to explode. Knowing the damage that could be caused where the super weapons are fully activate, Sidious shields the hailstorm of debris with his hands before moving towards the focal point of the destruction. Hiding behind a gravestone, Sidious uses his immense power and extracts the holocron from the obelisk. Sidious continues to shield himself with the Force before the dust finally settles. Peering over the gravestone, he sees the unmistakable figure of his former apprentice. At the mere sight of him, Sidious surged forward with Force speed, his lightsabers ignited, but Vader merely stood there with a grin on his face. Before Sidious could react, lightsabers flew in from all directions, and suddenly, Sidious was surrounded. Attempting to block all of the lightsabers, Sidious's blades move in a frenzy, but he is unable to cope. The sheer quantity of lightsabers tears through Sidious, leaving him to rot alongside the remains of the temple. Vader praises his Sith acolytes for luring the Sith Lord. News of Sidious's demise broke quickly, and Vader and the acolytes had to work hard to ensure that the propaganda covered up the real reason behind the fall of Sidious. However, the Jedi were not fooled. They knew that now was the perfect time to strike, whilst the Empire was adjusting to its new leader. This forces Luke, Obi-Wan and Yoda to come out of hiding a lot earlier than they had wanted to, resulting in Luke's training being far from complete. Putting these thoughts aside, the Jedi head to the mostly constructed Death Star, ignoring the warnings from the rebellion. Without any kind of clearance code or Imperial starship, the Jedi have to allow themselves to be lured in by the tractor beam, fortunate that they were not immediately annihilated by the super laser. Upon landing, the Jedi allow for the stormtroopers to enter their cruiser, and immediately, the sound of muffled screams could be heard through the ship. Putting the stormtroopers' blasters in holsters, Obi-Wan and Luke step out first, and begin to deflect the shots of the stormtroopers. Yoda then finally emerges, and force pushes 3 lines of stormtroopers onto the floor, before igniting his own blade. Attempting to search for the dark presence of Vader, Yoda feels something familiar, but can't quite put a finger on it. Navigating their way through the nest of ladders and scaffolding, the trio feel darkness envelop them as Vader emerges. His lightsaber ignited, Vader circles the Jedi, shooting daggers at Obi-Wan with his stare. Luke is finally the first to attack, but Vader easily sweeps him away with a swing of his blade. Vader then attacks Obi-Wan, whose old age begins to show, with his defences not what they once were. Yoda begins to take over from the tiring Obi-Wan, somersaulting his way over the top of Vader, but Vader swatted the attacks away with a smirk on his face. Yoda stepped back, and Vader used this moment to use his hand and swipe open several doors with the Force. The Jedi suddenly felt themselves surrounded by a dozen or so red blades. Yoda and Obi-Wan attempt to combine Force Wave, but the blades failed to move, as Vader countered it with his own use of the Force. Commanding the former Jedi Younglings to attack, Obi-Wan is the first to fall, as in a desperate attempt to protect Luke, his defences are toppled. Seeing Obi-Wan fall, Luke's previously caged anger is unleashed, and he swings wildly at the Younglings, his increase in speed causing them to step back. Vader switches Luke's focus towards him, and instantly, Luke's unpolished defences are exposed, with Vader dismembering him with several overhead blows, leaving Luke forever oblivious to Vader's true identity. Yoda is now alone and trapped. Getting a good look at the faces of Sith acolytes, Yoda now realises what he had felt earlier. He recognised their faces from the security footage of the Jedi Temple, and now it was his failure to protect them which would prove to have fatal consequences. Sitting in the middle of the cold floor, Yoda meditates for one final time, before becoming one with the Force. At last, the Younglings had revenge over those who had failed them, and for Vader, his one choice to save the Younglings proved to have altered the fate of the galaxy. That is it for What If Vader Saved the Younglings. I'm sorry that I've been away for a bit, but the normal schedule should return next week. As usual, please like this video and subscribe for more tips, and leave a comment on what if you'd like to see next. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.